Caleb, good to see you. How are you?
Good. How you guys doing? Okay.
Yeah, excited to get started. Another year.
Cold back in Columbus, huh?
A little snow today too. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to rub it in, but it's 80 degrees here, 75.
You don't have your tan yet though.
No, wearing sunscreen. All right. I don't know this whatever program they have me on here makes me look like I'm pale.
A little pasty, yeah. um, just given the way last year ended on a good stretch and not getting to your goals, and then maybe adding some new players, do you feel like kind of those juices needed to kind of start off preseason right and be hungry are kind of there for this team?
I think it makes it easy to start with an edge, a chip on their, chip on your shoulder, and with hunger to obviously have a better season than we had last year, bottom line, right? But also I think it helps too when you end well because the way that we ended. I'm not saying we will do the exact same things we were doing at the end, but the way that we ended gives us hope for next season, this season.
Our next question will go to Thomas Costello, followed by Pat Murphy. And if you would like a question, click the raise hand button.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate it. Last season, injuries in the midfield made consistency a little bit difficult. Now it seems like the opposite is true with Aiden coming back and Artur and Sebastian. They're all back with the club now. How do you see the depth chart looking for the defensive midfield? And does that include someone like Berhalter going back out on loan? Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Nice. Thanks for coming on, Thomas. Yeah, good question. Obviously, last season, you're spot on. We struggled really in a couple positions, mainly center of the park and central defender with injuries, and in those positions up the spine, that's where your stability, your confidence in a lot of ways, even your build up and your kind of rhythm and control of games comes through those positions. And it's no coincidence when you look at the stretch where we struggled. We had a revolving door as central defender and holding mid. So this year, you're correct in saying we have Aiden back. Artur's not back. He's not with us in preseason right now, so he's not back. He's still recovering. We don't know when he will be back. He's still having this chronic hip pain. So it's important to understand that. Perry Kitchen's also not back. But we do still have a lot of depth with Aiden, with Marlon, Sebastian back. We've signed Sean Sawatsky, Isaiah Parente. We have 4 homegrowns actually that play holding mid. So it's great to have some young guys and have some depth. And we might even be looking to sign a guy as well, especially if Artur's not looking to be back at the start of the year. We need to start, in that part of the field, with talent, with strength. We need quality. Okay, so we have some young guys, but they're young, and you need to see where they're at, and we'll know more after the next 40 days. Where a Sean Sawatsky fits, where a Berhalter is going to fit, even Aiden coming back from ACL. If we had Artur, you'd probably feel a little bit better knowing you didn't need to rely on one of those guys. So with Artur being out, we're probably looking to add a guy there.
Up next, we'll go to Pat Murphy, followed by Jacob.
Hey, Caleb. Kind of a general start of preseason question, but what are you looking to get out of each kind of section? I know you guys kind of divide it up generally as you go. What do you want to see out of this part of Florida? And then how do you kind of build as you get into the phases closer to the season?
Thanks, Pat. Good seeing you. It's my 9th preseason, nonetheless. And, obviously I've approached every preseason similar, but also different, and especially this preseason, I've tried to, because it's the fourth year being with this club with a lot of the same players. So the fourth year of a cycle with a mature team, we're putting new wrinkles in. And I think that's been very, stimulating for myself and the players. There's going to be some little tweaks this year. How we play, maybe some of the formations we use, the flexibility that we have. So I'm enjoying that. I think they are too, but also, not to be cliche, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we want to keep a lot of the philosophical things that we know. When we do it, we score goals and we win games. But I want flexibility this year in formation, and even just kind of where we put guys and how we shape up. And, we want to be a team that's exciting to watch, but more importantly, a team that scores more goals and creates more chances, and want to play a fast tempo and or a faster tempo at times, more vertical. So those are things I've always liked, but we might push those things a little bit more this year. So that's kind of been a little bit more of an emphasis right out of the gates.
And for our next question, we'll go to Jacob Myers. And if anyone would like the final question, then for that, click raise hand.
Caleb, at the end of last year, we talked about, just injuries and maybe you all kind of looking at things to do differently, whether that be staff or practice wise to keep those down, or maybe it was just a snake bitten year. Was there anything you guys kind of came up with in the off season or made any changes to deal with that?
Yeah, get younger, that helps. You look at a lot of the injuries, it was guys that were older players who had previous injury history. So if we want to play a fast tempo, we want to press and play more vertical and be more aggressive all over the park, we need players that can cover that ground and execute and not get injured, because to execute that way, you have to train that way. And so I think it's getting guys that are capable of doing that physically. Not saying we need 21-year-olds, but, maybe 32, 33-year-olds all over the park, isn't going to allow us to do that, which is why at times we were getting injuries, and or if we had to manage training, that little bit of sharpness maybe wasn't there at times. So we did hire a new gym guy to help Daniel Hicker. He's been a great addition already. So those are little things. We've adjusted our periodization of training, that physical periodization, based on just looking at last year and how we went through the season. We found a few little things in the acute chronic cycles that we flagged. And so I think, yeah, we've definitely analyzed and we'll make some, subtle corrections. But I think a lot of it, again, goes back to just getting guys that can train hard and play the way we want to play without getting injured.
And on the field with Pedro at left back, I'm curious how you all kind of view him as just you're completely confident he can be that guy, or maybe you're looking in this offseason still or the summer window to add a guy, and then in general taking him out of that winger spot. Does that kind of put some pressure on some other guys, younger guys, to really step it up this year?
Yeah, good. Again, great question. We know Pedro can play left back, and we've seen it. And in a lot of ways, when Milton we thought might not be back, we started looking and we kept going back to Pedro was better than every guy we were looking at, in terms of the profile of his engine, his ability to go box to box, left-footed, good crosser of the ball. And, he's an honest player. He's a good defender, good enough in how we want to play. So we're comfortable with Pedro at left back, whether it's a 4 or a 5. But also I think you'll see here In a couple days, we've got a young player that we've signed that's going to be a really good number 2. We think one of the best left backs in college who's come out. So Eunice is giving me the evil eye right now because I'm kind of tipping my hat a little, but I think with those 2, we'll be in good shape. As far as the winger position, I think we still have, we've signed Yao Yaboa. We still have Derek. We still have Luis Diaz. Again, not showing my cards, but there'll be some different shapes that we use where, perhaps we'll float, more of a pocket guy on one side, whether that's a Matan or Lucas, even, and be more maybe honest through the middle. Whether that's a 4-3-3, whether that's a 3-4-3, or even a 3-5-2. Those are some formations that we're gonna kind of look at, and I think you will see some changes game to game, even in game. And I think it's important that with this group, we have that flexibility. And going back to philosophy, we're always going to value the ball, but I think we're gonna value the pressing and countering, and for me, again, verticality and the tempo, quicker tempo, and how we play more this year.
Thank you, Caleb. And our final question will go to Pat Murphy.
Caleb, you just kind of mentioned what I was going to ask with potentially 2 forwards. You said at the end of last year that you viewed Miguel as a striker, or as a starter, along with Giassi. And I know that doesn't necessarily mean they both are going to be on the field all the time together, but could you just elaborate on kind of, without again showing your whole hand, how you kind of view that position heading into the year with those 2, and what we could kind of expect out of the forward position, having 2 guys like that?
Yeah, I think it's always important to get your best players on the field. And, sometimes that means you do have to leave off, a striker, or maybe, a winger, or a holding mid that, they're right there, and potentially, depending on the formation, the top 11, or, in a different formation, they're not in. So I think that's where it's important that we have that flexibility, because we feel like we have, a group of guys where there's maybe more guys that deserve to be in. And so to enable that personnel to fit, you need to have different shapes. And I think our philosophy and how we play will, remain the same for the most part. I mean, we're pretty pragmatic in terms of, what we push each game. We want to be adaptable. Some games keep the ball more, some games less and press, and some games transition. But, I think we can keep the philosophy and change the formation to fit the personnel in. So I like the idea of times, Miguel and Giassi playing together. I like at times one starting, depending on what we need, and the other coming in. But for sure, we feel both are starters, and we feel both will play a major role.
Thank you, Caleb. This is going to conclude